Welcome to r/malicious compliance. We follow orders down to the space. My mum's story, not mine. My mum is a retired high school librarian, and my dad is a retired elementary school principal. Dad's school was 5 miles further than Mum's school, so they drove to work together during the same year. High school days began at 8:15, while elementary school days began at 8:30. Dad always wanted to be at work early, so he dropped off Mum at 7. Mum, who she was, would open the library to students at 7, and the students would have an extra 30 minutes in the library, then was mandated. One day Mum drove herself in as Dad had an appointment that day. She arrived at 7:30 to see the principal waiting for her. The library was supposed to be open to students at 7:30, but Mum had been opening it at 7 for a few years now. Mum's contract also stipulated that she worked on site 8 hours every school day, but since she and Dad drove together, she'd wait for him to pick her up, essentially worked 9-hour days, 7 to 4. When she arrived that fateful day, the principal reprimanded her for being late. She tried to tell him that she was on time, but he wouldn't have any of it. There were students waiting to be let into the library, and that was unacceptable. So Mum told him, "Do you want me to be here at 7:30? You know my contract says I'm not to exceed 8 hours. I'd like to get that in writing." She had a signed letter from him within an hour. From then on, Mum arrived at 7 and left at 3. 15 minutes before school let out, she was almost home before the last bell of the day rang. If anyone questioned her, she'll pull out the principal's letter to show them. The principal never argued with her again. Our next poach is from Who Screwed the Pooch. Many years ago, I worked for a little company. So was a missive of the first order. We needed image hosting for a large client account. The CEO was unwilling to pay maybe 2 to 3K in annual image hosting fees at the time, even though the company made millions of the deal. Me being an enterprising individual, I figured out a way to host images on Flickr. I saved the login information in a physical notebook and kept informing them that this is a house of cards and we need to switch to a professional service. Several months later, I was promoted and asking for a raise to go with my promotion. CEO said no, all promotions and raises required CEO sign-off. I tried negotiating, but the CEO said no. Recently I received a professional networking site message from the CEO, telling me to help them with old accounts or he'll sue me. Apparently Flickr changed their terms of service and the images were deleted. In over 10 years, nobody updated any of the documentation or the image hosting. Nobody bothered to check the email accounts either that was used to log on to Flickr accounts, and BCC'd my personal email in this email, a full inventory of what I left behind, invoices, contracts, etc., including this entry. Personal notebook accounts and notes reference material, including hosting logins for blank accounts, keep for reference. Recently I received a professional networking site message from the CEO, telling me to help them with the old accounts or he'll sue me. Apparently Flickr changed their terms of service and the images were deleted. In over 10 years, nobody updated the documentation or the image hosting. Nobody bothered to check the email account either that was used to log into the Flickr account. I told him that I cannot help, as per his request I had forgotten everything I knew about his company, and anything I knew was in that notebook I left him over 10 years ago. Seriously though, I don't even remember what I had for breakfast. Technical details from that long ago. I just laugh. The next post is from New Techie 1. At my job, every day I have to travel between two offices. I start at main office and then have to travel to the second office, then back to the main office. Because I'm using my personal vehicle for this travel, the company pays me mileage. There are basically two routes you can take between the two offices. One is about a mile round trip shorter, but has toll, so I always took the 1 mile longer route to avoid the tolls. I did this way for a year. Well, in comes the new bookkeeper, and she is hell-bent on saving the company money. And where does she think all the wasteful money is going? Expense reports, obviously. She starts to nitpicking every report, like someone is out to buy some pens for work. She goes online, finds the cheapest price possible for those pens, and only reimburses for the cheaper price. It obviously has pissed off several people. Well, she eventually decided to target me. I submit my report for 2 weeks, and a few days later I get the company reimbursement payment. Well, it's $5.85 short. I ask her about it, and she says I've been ripping off the company for the past year, and by taking the longer route between the offices. She'll only pay me mileage for the shorter route from now on. And I'm lucky she doesn't go back and take back all the extra money from the past year. I say, okay, but please send me that per her. I must take the shorter route and this company's policy and leave her office. Before I even made it to my desk, I had an email from her confirming what she had said. 2 weeks later, I submit my expense report. I pulled the shorter route, so the company saved $5.85, but tolls add up to $136. A net loss for the company of $130.15. It's been 6 months and I'm still taking the shorter route, costing the company $130.15 every 2 weeks. Our next Reddit post is from u/BrightRick. Back in the 1980s, I worked for a sporting goods company as a catalogue designer. Small company, privately owned. I was the entire advertising department. I created 4 catalogues a year. These were responsible for most of our mail orders, sales, pre-internet, to the tune of around $700,000 per year. We sent the catalogues via bulk mail using mailing service. This let us send them for a much discounted rate. To do this required the use of bulk mail permit and placing the permit info on the mailing area of the catalogue. Technically, this is called a fitch. Enter a new boss. Call him Ron. I was number one, the only one in my department. For some reason, the company owner hired Ron as a favour to a friend. From day one, he was micromanaging, questioning everything, and screwing with my very tight schedule. This was before computers were common. Everything was done by hand, literally typing out the copy and reducing it on a photocopier to fit. Developing photo film myself, making prints, etc. The actual printer had to add screens to the photos so they'd print, burn metal plates, and so on. All time consuming and expensive. Deadlines could not be missed. I was stuck in the several 16-hour days come crunch time. I was complaining to the owner, but he really couldn't care less. I really wanted to stick it to Ron, and the opportunity presented itself. Constant threats in my way or you're fired were getting to me. The latest pre-summer catalogue was done. Summer was our biggest season. I had to give him my mock-up, photocopied sheet stapled together, of the final catalogue for his approval. A next step added after he demanded it. He looked at it, sent it back with several pointless revisions and a note to remove that ugly permanent maintenance box because it was not needed where he worked previously. Stuffed their mailers in envelopes. The envelopes had the Finch, but their mailer did this last step. I asked him to initial the changes as this was the final approved version and was going to the printer the next day. There was no time to check it again, so he did. I knew it would be a total mess, and it's something I would never have done in the past. 50,000 catalogs printed and shipped directly to the mailer. The day they arrive at the mailer, the boss gets a call from the sales rep. "We can't mail your catalogs." Boss storms into my area of the building and is literally screaming. Ron is now pissed and yelling at me, joined by the boss. I swear, spittle in the froth, vein bulging, screaming. Minimum 2-week delay, wasted money, lost sales. I explained that what happened, the threat to fire me, and showed the owner the changes to the final copy, initialed by Ron. He was going to give Ron a second chance until the bill came from the printer. They had to stamp 50,000 catalogs by hand. We had to rent their permit since that's what was on the stamp. Rental labor was almost $8,000 adjusted for inflation. That's $20,000. Plus our early summer boost was off by almost 50k from the previous years, or 200k adjusted for inflation. Ron was fired. I was left alone after that. And that's the end of the first Reddit video. Have a good rest of your day.